Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Minnesota Rackstars Podcast. I am your host, Joe Call, and this week we are sitting down with former Conservation Officer Paul Kuske, and we're going to be diving into some issues that the state has been dealing with as far as licensing systems go, CWD, and a lot of other things we discuss along the way. And I think one of the big things, the cool things that Paul does is he gives back to the community quite a bit, and that's through our local trap team, our local high school trap team. So we're going to kind of go into some of those conversations, and it was cool just sitting down with him. He invited me over to his place, and we just kind of sat down on his porch and just had a good conversation and a good recording of a podcast. There's no doubt about it. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast, and let's get to it. All right, this week we're going to be starting something new and a lot of fun, and it's called the Bonehead segment. It's going to be brought to you by Skullcraft, and if you need a European mount done this year, make sure you get a hold of Justin over at Skullcraft, and he can help you out. But what we're looking for is you guys to interact with us, and if you have a Bonehead story to tell us, you need to send us a message, or even better, if you could film yourself telling the story, that would be great. Or if you have video of it, just send it our way, and if we use your story on our segment, we're going to send you a cool gift. So if you have something for us to use, send it over our way, and if we use it, we'll send you a cool little gift in the mail. Hey, when looking for hunting apparel this year, make sure you check out ArcticShieldOutdoor.com and use the code RACK20, that's RACK20, for 20% off. If you're looking to book a fishing trip in the Brainerd Lakes area, you need to make sure you check out the Fish Guide. Nick has been guiding in the Brainerd Lakes area for many years, and he does a great job of putting his clients on fish. So if you're interested in booking a trip, make sure you check out the Fish Guide. That's GUYD.com. Ever since the beginning, we've been working with Domain when it comes to our food plots, and our goal is to make sure that we are giving the deer the best nutrition possible, and then hopefully being able to harvest a deer on one of our plots. So if you're like us and you're all about deer health and growing big deer, you need to make sure you check out DomainOutdoor.com. When it comes to capturing that hunt of a lifetime on film, there's no better camera gear out there than Fourth Arrow camera arms. I made the switch a few years back, and I'm so glad I did. It is so light and so easy to use that it has made a huge difference in my packing in, packing out, and being able to capture some really cool hunts. So if you're interested in filming your hunts, you need to make sure you check out FourthArrowCameraArms.com. Hey, if you're looking to do a European mount with your trophy this year, make sure you check out Justin over at Skullcraft. He does fabulous work. He's been in the game for a while, and he does some really good work with his beetles in producing the best possible European mount. So if you're interested in doing a Euro, make sure you check out Justin over at Skullcraft. If you're looking to upgrade your turkey call, or maybe get someone a new turkey call for a gift, you need to make sure you check out Brad over at S1K Custom Calls, because he is designing some sweet calls that I have actually used and had really good success with. So if you're looking for a new turkey call, make sure you check out S1K Custom Calls. When hunting, you're faced with many different challenges, whether it's early season with the bugs or late season with the freezing temps. And that's why we work with J&R Outdoors. If you go on their Facebook page, you'll see that they have a good selection of 12-point hunting blinds that can help you battle the elements, whether it's early season or late season. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of success using a natural grapevine when it comes to making mock scrapes. And if you don't have access to an all-natural grapevine, get a hold of me and I'll get you a double drop vine. What it is an all-natural grapevine with a pre-drilled hole and heavy-duty fishing line to tie up to an overhanging branch, and is real simple, real easy. So if you're looking to get those trail camera photos, get inventory of some good deer, and hopefully harvesting a buck over the top of that scrape, make sure you get a hold of me and I'll get you a double drop vine. All right, here we go. Today I'm sitting down with a neighbor of mine. I guess we're considered neighbors, right?
Close enough.
Out in the country, I guess. I'm sitting here with Paul Kuske, former conservation officer here in central Minnesota, and Paul's been on the podcast. I think it was twice, because the first one we recorded, it didn't record, so then we had to redo it again.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me over here. Sweet place, first time I've been over here, and obviously you're really into the outdoors, just like I would assume most COs are. But looking at your property as I was driving through, you got quite a few projects that you got going on right now that you were telling me about.
Yeah, I extremely blessed to have the property that I have, and I acquired it back in the mid-2000s. 40 acres that the home place is on. That's primarily a white pine plantation and a little patch of oaks. Deer just, especially in the wintertime with those white pines, they just love it. And another 80 acres across the road that I've got a pond project I'm working on, and lots of tree plantings, lots of buckthorn work, food plots, that kind of a thing. I've always kind of managed it for deer, creating as much edge as possible. Deer like that transition, that edge.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my plantations and food plots, everything's got lots of edge to it, and it's so fun.
It is. It's a strategy that you try to implement, and year after year, you're constantly changing things and altering things to get things to work a little better. When you work on your properties, in your mind, I think there's two types of hunters out there, and some that are just in between. Types of hunters that, okay, I'm gonna build this property where I can harvest deer, and then there's the people like, yeah, I want to harvest deer, but that's not my main goal. I also have the thought of, helping deer with nutrition and all that stuff. And then there's the people that are just like, I'm just going to make this property. I'm not going to hunt it much. I just want to see deer be healthy and grow and I don't know, just maybe try to get them to the next age class, whatever. What's your thought going into your property when you're working on things?
Well, over the years, I've really catered to young people, kids coming out with mom or dad to especially shoot their first deer, take that first deer. And I've tried to set up a lot of my stands so you see deer. I think for a kid, especially starting out hunting, to be able to see deer. It's one thing to stick a kid on a stand in a piece of woods on a trail where they might see deer, they might not. Most of my stands are associated with food plots or someplace, a high traffic area. So they're going to see a deer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been so important to me over the years that those kids experience that and get that first deer, get to pick and choose a little bit what they want to, if they want to wait for this one to come a little closer, kind of play with that stuff. That's been one of my biggest motivations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you can get other people out in the outdoors. And I know you do a lot for young people. I know there's a scholarship program that you have for kids at school and stuff.
Yep.
And for you to be focused on that next generation in some way, shape, or form is awesome. You mentioned buckthorn.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a interesting comment with one of our other neighbors the other day. He feels that turkeys are a big culprit of the spread of buckthorn. What are your thoughts there?
That's very true, I think, because, birds in general really spread those seeds. Those buckthorn seeds act as a laxative, actually, and they'll go right through those birds. I mean, it's amazing. I'll have little buckthorn sprouts up around the house here. It's like, where'd those come from?
Yeah.
Well, ironically, they're right next to the bird bath.
Sure.
So you got, whatever size birds it is, pooping those seeds out.
Yep.
Buckthorn, I mean, I've battled it big time. It's become a passion.
Me versus you. We're going for it.
Yeah. And I talk to a lot of people about it because a lot of people just are at odds. Where do I start?
Yeah.
And what I told people, I said, if you've got a really big, thick stand of buckthorn, so one of the easiest things you can do is just make a trail right through the middle of it. And the deer respond to that so willingly. They don't like walking through that stuff any more than we do. And when you make the trail, the path easier for them, and I found it too where you can actually start directing deer into certain areas by creating, easements, comfortable easements for deer to travel through that buckthorn. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I was dealing with some of that the other day, and I was just trimming the weeds around my yard because it starts to grow in, and I'm like, yeah, there's buckthorn. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting because that individual mentioned that if you want to shoot some turkeys, come on over. Anyone else wants to shoot turkeys, come on over because I'm sick of dealing with the buckthorn. I'm like, all right, sounds good. But yeah, I don't know. What else have you been kind of doing to kind of prep for the upcoming season?
Well, normally my food plots, working on deer stand, stuff like that. I tried planting trees this year, but now with this drought, I don't know if a lot of them are going to make it.
Yep.
Pretty serious situation we're in right now. But I spend a lot of time. I maintain a lot of different trails, mowing trails, trimming. Now usually the last week of August, first week of September, I'll start hitting buckthorn.
Sure.
Certain areas. I really concentrate on looking for the seed-bearing trees.
Okay. Yep.
Try to take those out first, and then any real thick stands, I'll either go in and spray them or cut them. I've kind of graduated more to spraying them. It's just a lot easier,
Yep. How about the one thing that's cool, if you look at Paul's Facebook, he posts a decent amount of your trail camera photos.
Yeah.
And those are in some pretty sweet spots. Why don't you kind of tell us where you kind of have those positioned?
Yeah. So, it's you kind of learn, you'll put a camera up in a certain spot and, well, this isn't working. But I've kind of identified certain funnel areas. I've got a little creek that goes through my property, and I've got a little water crossing for, we can take the ATVs through or something like that. And that's a huge funnel area, huge. And I'll set a camera up there, and it's just amazing the variety of stuff, when you identify those funnel areas. The other place I always like to do it is I've got one of my favorite food plots is right behind the house that I'm convinced that the deer use this 40 I have behind my house as a bedding area more than anything else. And consequently, they just love that one food plot that I have kind of smack in the woods. And they hit that hard. And that's really fun having a camera on there. It's not unlike, this little 40 acres, I'll have 7, 8, 9 deer on that thing at a time. It's just crazy. But yeah, running cameras is really fun. I got a couple of neighbors that started doing it too. And if you just have a trail that you just see where stuff is, you have a deer trail. Deer aren't the only thing that use it. Everything uses it. I get bobcats, fisher. I've had a number of bears coming through, and yeah.
Have you had any timber wolves yet on camera?
Not on camera, but I had a pair come through on Easter weekend 2 years ago.
Okay.
They came right through my yard.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably coming over to my place.
Yeah. Yeah, those things, 20 miles to them is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They travel so much. Yeah.
Based off of your observation, I don't know. I've had some conversations with people before about like genetics and whatnot. And you get some people that are firm believers that there's not the good enough genetics in certain areas to grow good deer, and whatever that means to that individual, whatever. But how do you feel the genetic pool is in this neck of the woods here?
Well, it's interesting because I'll have a number of bucks that I see on camera, July and August, and it's amazing how few of those we will see or have an opportunity to shoot in the fall. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. And some of the bigger bucks that we've ever shot here are deer that we never saw here.
Sure.
Never saw here. 2 miles away, they had them on camera,
mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they're here. I've always maintained a relatively, well, I maintain, but I've always had a high percentage of does in this area for some reason. Well, if you have a lot of does, the bucks are going to come.
Oh, yeah.
So those genetics are going to come with it. It's kind of interesting, those bucks that are hanging around 2 and 3 miles away are coming over and breeding my does.
Mm-hmm.
So those genetics, really get spread around. It's amazing. You might think you don't have any nice bucks breeding your does. You do.
Yep. Yep. You're exactly right. And that was the exact same thought that I kind of had in my head when people talk to me like, oh, we don't have good genetics around here. Well, it's not necessarily what you have here, because those bucks are going to roam and come from miles away, and you don't know what's going to wander onto your property, what deer herd is, 2, 3, 4, 6 miles away that could be coming over. Well, now guess what? They're spreading their genes into your area, and whether those fawns stick around or not, who knows? But still, I just, how people can definitively say, our gene pool isn't great. And I don't know. And a lot of that too is comes with age. Are the deer getting to an age class where they can express their full genetic potential? What is the nutrition like? What is the soil health like in that area to see those deer make that jump? It's no different than us. If we're not eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle,
Yep.
we're not going to reach our full genetic potential either. So it's just interesting to hear some people's comments with that. Go ahead.
And like when we hunt here, the other people that hunt here, every year, you've got those one or two does, those big does, and I'll always kind of identify those, and I know where they hang out, and I'll tell my hunters, you know what, let's lay off. If we're really not seeing much, that's the only opportunity.
Right.
Go ahead. But if there's other opportunities, I'd rather see you take a year and a half doe and leave that bigger old doe around.
Yep.
And that's something I've always practiced. As far as putting meat in the freezer, I always try to target those year and a half does.
Yep.
Unless you get a nice buck coming around. And
Sure.
I always tell the kids you can shoot anything you want. I don't care if it's a spike or a 10-pointer or whatever.
Yep.
You shoot whatever you want.
Yep, that's good.
But yeah, every year I'll have certain target deer that I know are frequenting certain spots, and I let my hunters know and just give it thought.
Yep. How about, I mean, you've traveled a lot of the state before. You've been on a lot of different people's properties. Based off of your knowledge and your experience, some of the properties that stand out to you that you've been on, and then maybe year in and year out that people harvest really good deer, really, really good bucks. Kind of describe what comes to mind when you think of their properties. Like what is it that makes their property special where year in and year out they can harvest some good deer?
Usually it's a bigger contiguous block of woods that's got good edge to it. You can take a 160 acre square block of oaks, might not have that good at deer hunting,
Mm-hmm.
but you throw a little opening in there, or I've always found that a water source is always very key. If you're able to do food plots, that's tremendous. But we go all the way back to what we started with, is creating that edge.
Mm-hmm.
And these properties that have that mosaic design of edge, lots of transition, and the other thing is that these properties have areas where people stay out of. Like even on my little 40 here, it's amazing what you can do with 40 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Come September 1st, I've got a portion of my 40 acres where we don't step a foot in it. And those deer know that. And that's where they'll bed in there. They don't get bothered by nothing, nobody. And it's amazing what you can do with actually a pretty small piece of property.
Do you think that has something to do with not only you kind of leaving that as a sanctuary, but also them knowing, okay, they're safe there, and there might not be as many other predators around your house here and your farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know I've had I don't know if I shared this on the podcast before or not, but my daughter one time, she was probably 3-4 years old, and we had the water sprinkler going outside, and we opened up the front door, and she went running out, and she was screaming because she was excited to go through the sprinkler. And all of a sudden, from the south, here comes this doe sprinting across my lawn at her. And I'm like, whoa! And I started yelling, and that doe turned off, and she ran into the woods behind my house. And then after it all happened, it hit me rather quickly. Like, she sounded like a distressed fawn running out there into that sprinkler.
Sure.
I played it back in my head. I'm like, that sounded just like a distressed fawn. And that doe thought that was her fawn in distress, and that's why I came over. But yeah, and then all of a sudden, as time went on, there was a little fawn that would come out of the woods with that doe. So it was like crazy. But yeah, and the other day I was doing a little video right outside my house, and I heard some deer take off. But yeah, kind of the same thing. I kind of leave my property somewhat untouched. And also from other predator standpoint, I'm sure they know that they're a little more safe around the houses. But going back to your trail cameras, you mentioned you have a lot of different critters on there. You have bears on there, which kind of brings up a point here in Minnesota. Recently, some issues we've had here in Minnesota with the licensing, online licensing stuff with bear licenses and the surplus tags or leftover tags. What has there been any recent news? Have you heard with what they're going to do since they've shut down the sales of those?
I made a few inquiries, and nobody seems to know.
Sure.
Yeah, the people that I talk to, anyways, everybody's kind of sitting around scratching their head, trying to make progress, working through the technology piece of it, getting everything to work. But yeah, I don't know where it's going.
I thought I saw something on Facebook this morning. I should have read it before I came over here, but I saw something that there's been a release, an update on what's going to be happening. So it'll be interesting. But I think if you go on the Minnesota Outdoor News Facebook page, I think they posted something or reposted something, kind of informing people of what's going on. But yeah, so I mean, anytime you transition into something different, technology especially, there's always going to be some bugs and things to try to work out. And hopefully they can get it figured out. I know there were some upset people, expressing their thoughts on social media. But I think that's the one thing that we should probably hit on as far as like our COs that are out there and what they're having to deal with, in the transition, and how, hunters out there should go about things if they're approached by a CO.
Yeah, this year is going to be interesting. And I think hunters in general, people are going to have to show a little bit of patience with our conservation officers, because just like us being frustrated with this big change, and change is always hard.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody likes change. But they're having to go through a big process themselves. And so I think we're all going to have to be a little bit patient with them and a little more forthgiving, maybe being a little more honest. But we're going to have to give them a little bit of a break, because they're wading through the same mess that we are, and it's going to take a couple of years. I heard different people say, probably 3 years before everything really gets fine-tuned. Yeah.
What I guess the biggest thing, which was interesting, because before I reached out to you to see if you want to do a podcast, I was being told by one of our local mom and pop shops that sell licenses that they were having some issues, and I just wanted to kind of put out there, and you'll attest to this, get your licenses taken care of as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the one piece that people don't realize is that with this new system, you need to go in and create a new account. You're in the DNR system, but you're not in this new account, and all of that information needs to be transferred over. That's part of setting up that account. I went on a week ago and set mine up, and it took me about 15, 20 minutes, and it went okay. Now I talked to another guy that went online, and during the process, he discovered that the phone number that was on record was wrong. And the system would not let him create a new account with that old phone number. And there was no way for him to change the phone number. And after an hour on the computer, he just gave up. So that's why I've been telling everybody, start now.
Yep.
Right now. Get that account set up, get through that all mess, and then plan on buying your license early.
Yep.
If you wait till the day before to buy a license, I don't think you're gonna get one.
I would agree. You can't do what you've done in the past. You need to change your ways. How many times have you driven through town on that Friday before the opener, and there are just tons of vehicles at the gas station buying their license, and there was some issues then already. Yeah. Now there's going to be more. You can't wait this year.
Well, and a lot of people are getting taken off guard that have gone in to try to buy a license already, that they aren't given a piece of paper anymore. And especially a lot of the old guys, they want that piece of paper, and that's going to be a big change for everybody. You aren't getting a physical tag anymore. You aren't getting a paper license. It's either going to be on your phone or it's going to be on the computer. If you want a paper license or a paper tag, you got to print it yourself.
And along with that, I'm going to come right back to that portion, but some of the gas stations, mom and pop shops, are no longer working with the DNR on selling license, because I know there's been some gas stations that I went to go buy my fishing license. They said, sorry, we don't sell them here anymore.
Yeah, so what's happening with these folks is that over the years, the equipment that they use has been provided to them by the DNR. Well, the state has said they're not going to do that anymore. In fact, they're basically going to be collecting all of that equipment from these point of sales, gas stations, resorts, whatever. And if those people want to continue to sell licenses, they've got to provide their own equipment. So it's like, you got some little mom and pop resort or some little gas station that really counts on those people stopping in because they buy the deer license or the fishing license and
everything else.
Everything else. Well, now those people, are they going to stop there? Maybe, maybe not. So a lot of these people are, it's like, do they work out the money and buy the equipment, or what do they do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something you guys really need to get on the ball and get after it and get that license taken care of. And I want to kind of have you show me a little bit on my phone here, because right after we're done here, I want to kind of walk through and get my license started right now with the app and everything. But going back to no physical piece of paper anymore, what's your understanding of how you tag/register your deer now?
So what's going to happen is no physical tag on your deer anymore. You shoot a deer, you're going to go on your phone, pull up your app, and validate. Time, date, month, just like we do at to validate on our tags, notching our tags. You're going to validate on your phone. So the first question that comes up is, well, what if I don't have service? Well, what the state is saying is that if while you have service, log into your phone, log into your account, stay logged in, and it will continue to work if you don't have service. And then once you have service, it will automatically download it to the master service.
Sure.
And consequently, supposedly, conservation officers are going to be getting an app for their phone where they can type in Joe Call and see if you validated or registered your deer or whatever's going on. Well, once again, that's only going to update as people have service, so it's going to be a little cumbersome.
It'll make it interesting for those people who, quote unquote, party hunt with other people afield.
Well, I don't know if enough thought was put into this ahead of time because, it's going to create some scenarios for some wide open situations. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And, I feel for the COs that are going to be out there trying to keep things in line and making sure, because we have to have our rules and regulations. Like I've said before on other podcasts, if we don't have boundaries, things are going to be crazy. And obviously there was good intent of trying to do this, and things are kind of going south right now. And now it's left up to our COs out there to try to smooth everything over. You know what I mean? So they're the ones that are going to be having the most difficult time in my mind this year. Yeah, we're going to be struggling with trying to get registered online, buy your license, all that stuff. But I really feel for those COs out there this year.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to be challenging. I've been talking to a couple of them, and they're just like, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I think you've talked about this before, but I just want to hit on this just so people understand like how these processes work. Like it's not all the DNR involved. There's other people involved in making these decisions, and if you can kind of maybe clear that up a little bit so the finger isn't being pointed at, one group of people.
Yeah, so Minnesota DNR, if you look across the country, we're kind of behind the curve compared to other states that have a lot of this stuff already completed, online, phone apps, things like that. North and South Dakota have, really good processes. Other states do too. Mm-hmm. So this is something that Minnesota's been looking at for quite a while. I think it actually started back in 2017, I was told. and they've been working through this process, looking at different vendors, different systems, how this vendor is better than that one, looking at other states and how they do things. But, a lot of this is just the culture in general, where everything's electronic, everything's on your phone, getting away from paper, anything physical, tactical. So it's a lot of this is being not necessarily decided by someone at the bottom of the DNR, but way up high. It's just a process. Is it cost savings? I don't know. Is it convenience? I don't know. Is it a better way to capture information? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of unknowns out there, but people are gonna have their thoughts and opinions. But like you said, it's not the guys and gals that are running around and driving the gravel roads, pulling the strings on everything. I mean, they're just doing their job out there. So be patient with the guys and gals out there this year. I kind of want to transition kind of back to your glory days back in the day, if you will. Speaking of being out there on the gravel roads and whatnot, I think I've asked you before, like, what's your first, hunting memory and stuff. What's your first big memory of when you were a CO? Like, and you can go anywhere with that. Like, one of the big memories that stand out for you when you first got into this line of work.
Well, I started looking at this job when I was in 7th grade. And I had a teacher in high school that was a very good mentor for me in directing me into this career. And so it was something I always had my eye on. I think I'm a little bit of an anomaly for a 7th grader to be saying, yep, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But, the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question was, when I got the letter in the mail that said, yep, you're going to be going to the Piers station. And I'm like, I grew up in southern Minnesota. I'm like, I've never heard of Piers. Where's this at? I pull out the Minnesota map, and I'm like, that looks like a nice part of the state. Well, I came up here, and the CEO that was here before me didn't have necessarily the best relations with people. He was not loved by maybe any means.
Yeah.
So when I first got here, I mean, I was wearing the same uniform as him, so everybody assumed I was just like him.
You're him.
And I tell you what, the first 2 years I was here, my phone didn't ring. People hardly talked to me. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? And it was at that point, I really started to realize, okay, I need to change something here.
Sure.
Started getting involved with different clubs and organizations and just, showing up at coffee time at businesses and things like that. And it took, a while for people to really get to know that, oh, this guy is different than the guy that was here before. And, it started to build the relationships. And one thing I'll say about this part of Morrison County in general is I've really enjoyed just the people themselves and just being very respectful. Very respectful. Everybody's on the same page for the most part, just wanting to do things the right way. And that helped me in my career so much. I was able to get so many things done without writing a ticket.
Sure. Yep.
Just because you're working with people and getting people to understand why we need to change our behavior, that kind of a thing.
And that was one of the thoughts I had in my head too. When is it, like you have a decision, do you write the ticket or not? And what can swing a situation where a person does end up earning a ticket versus, what, let's just let you off with a warning here, we'll move on. What is that deciding factor in your mind?
Well, as a training officer, I had a lot of new people, and I always used to tell them that the law is written in black and white, but we enforce it in living color. And I would always, you always need to look at the totality of the circumstance. Intent is a really big one. Was always a big one for me. Did the person did they really intentionally do what they did? Attitude. I had a lot of officers tell me that you should never rate a ticket based on attitude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Attitude plays a big part.
Yep.
And I used to tell my trainees, I said, if we're in a situation, I said, I don't care what you do, whether it's a verbal warning, a written warning, or a ticket, but you better explain to me why.
Mm-hmm.
And it better not be, well, the law says this.
Sure.
That's not why you should be taking any of those actions. You got to explain to me the whole situation, why you're trying to change that person's behavior and what method you're using to get that done.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Personality and being kind and being honest can go a long ways.
Oh, huge. Huge.
Yeah, you see some of these clips on social media where, I don't know, there's a lot of situations too where people are getting along with law enforcement, but which clips do you see online? It's the people arguing with law enforcement and stuff, and it's just like, what are we doing out there, people? Like, come on. Like, it's just, it's unbelievable. But since you've moved on, and maybe I'm sure you were doing this already before you retired, but you started really giving back a lot to the community, whether it's helping with the school, with scholarships, but also coaching as well. Do you want to kind of dive into the experience you've had with helping the trap team?
Yeah, well, and I'll back up just a hair because I learned early on in my career that adults are hard to change.
Sure.
But kids are still moldable. And that's why I started going into the schools and interacting with the kids. They take a lot of that home. And I just kept right on it because I saw so many benefits from it. I'm a hunter and I love shooting. And when the opportunity came along for me to get into the sport of high school trap shooting, I was like, this is about the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that sport in general has done so much for youth involvement in shooting sports. And that leads to hunting. That leads to, other outdoor activities. And I guess one of the other things I liked about the high school trap shooting is that it involves kids that a lot of these kids aren't involved in any other kind of sport or activity. And it's really been a place for some of these kids to really excel. Maybe they don't like the contact of football. Maybe they can't dribble a basketball, but boy, they can shoot the daylights out.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun.
I think I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that trap leads the U.S. in, I'm trying to figure out how to word this, the least amount of injuries compared to any other sport out there.
It's the safest,
and they're dealing with guns.
It's the safest high school sport.
There you go. It's the safest high school sport.
I mean, is that so ironic to today's culture?
Right.
I mean, I'll go over to the Alexandria State Shoot, and there's 9 days of shooting, and each day there's 800 different kids there, and you got 800 kids walking around with guns, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned that you have done a lot of shooting in the past. I want you to kind of walk through on prepping your gun and then kind of going into marksmanship and stuff like that along the way. But like starting out, making sure that your weapon is ready to go on demand when you need it, and then kind of moving forward from there.
Yeah. I've helped a lot of people get set up with especially deer hunting rifles. And the first thing is you got to find something that you want to shoot. I've had people show up with guns that they did not like shooting it. And I'm like, get rid of it right now. Find a caliber, find a gun that you enjoy shooting. Number one thing. The second thing is you got to spend some time on the range. You can't just pull the gun out of the closet and shoot it 2 times before you go deer hunting. That's a disservice to the animal, in my opinion.
Yep.
I really like one-shot clean kills. I think a lot of people overlook bullet selection. They complain, I shot the deer and there was no blood trail, I couldn't find it, and a lot of that when I start talking to people, not always, but a lot of it is bullet selection. What kind of bullet are you using? I love using monolithic all copper bullets because they go right through the animal. You always get it in and out. And even if you're hitting bones and stuff, you always get it in and out. You always got 2 holes for that blood to leak out of. I don't like losing animals, and my experience over 20 years of shooting those monolithic bullets, tracking deer has been pretty easy.
Yeah.
But then the whole marksmanship part of it is, I've helped people sight in their guns for deer season, and we'll put up a paper plate. That's the standard, I guess, at 100 yards. Oh, I can hit the paper plate. I'm good. Okay, so you can hit a paper plate at 100 yards. That means when you're aiming at that deer, you've got to really pick your spot carefully if you're only able to hit a paper plate size.
Yeah.
Now, if I can hit a tennis ball, a 2-inch circle at 100 yards, if I can do that consistently, now when I'm shooting at a deer, look at how much more leeway I have if I'm off a little bit on that deer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's where a lot of people don't process that in their head. So, yeah, I'm a big stickler. Anybody that hunts at my place, we're at the range early September shooting.
What is it, like walk me through the process to be consistent? Well, it's practicing stuff, but there's a lot of mental and physical things that go on before you pull that trigger. Like, what's going through your head and your process before you pull that trigger to be consistent at that distance?
Well, the first thing is goes right back to having a gun that you want to shoot, that you're not afraid to snuggle up to it and really get down in there and concentrate, pull that trigger as you're looking through the scope. When you're thinking about pulling that trigger, are you lifting your head away from the scope or your sights? You're going to have a bad shot. So it's really getting comfortable with that gun and being able to just really, pick that gun up, that it fits properly. It's not too big for you or not too small for you. And that will naturally just make you a better shooter. Start out close, start out at 50 yards. Do a bunch of shooting. Gradually move out farther. For years, I just shot at 100 yards, and probably about 7-8 years ago, I started doing more long distance stuff. And I would look at those targets at 300 yards, and I'm just like, oh man, this is hard. And now I look at it, and I'm like, piece of cake, piece of cake, because I've put the time in to practice. Yep. A lot of people. I've had people show up with a variety of ammo. Now, you got to remember that, if you have Winchester, Remington, and Federal ammo, even though they all have 80 grain bullets in them or 150 grain bullets in them, I'm sorry, but they're all going to shoot different. Find one ammo that works well in your gun, stick with it.
I think the one thing that I feel I'm a decent shot, like I use my bow a lot more than my gun. So like when I pull out my rifle, which I very seldom do, if anything, it's my muzzle loader. Yeah. But a lot of times, one thing I do is I'll get settled in there, and I'll leave it. I won't put it on fire yet. I'll leave the safe on, and I'll get in there, and I'll run it through my head first, like when I would pull the trigger, and then I would click it on fire, and I'd slowly put my finger in there. But then it would be breathe out, and then I would almost trick myself, like I'm not even going to pull the trigger. I'm just mentally saying that's about when I would shoot, and I just trick myself that I'm not even shooting. But I slowly squeeze that trigger off, and it catches me by surprise, so that eliminates my flinch before I pull and everything else. So I kind of trick myself into you're not pulling the trigger, and I'm just relaxed as all get out. And I can usually hold on to that target pretty good. Yep. After firing, it's usually turned out pretty good for me. That's one of the things that I do to try to be as accurate as possible, whether it's hunting deer or just target practicing. But there's a trend online that people talk about target panic. Have you ever heard that term before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, good thing you haven't, because in my mind, I think this thing is just a made-up term that people want to kind of gather a lot of tension around, where they're like, they get afraid of like holding the crosshairs or the pin on the target, and then that builds up nerves, and then they end up, punching the trigger too fast or whatever. I don't know. I think it's like a lot of things in life where also we start talking about it, and now it becomes a thing where it's like, okay, I don't know. I'm one of those people too where I don't know. I guess sometimes maybe I'm too confident in things that I can do, where sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I don't know, like whether it's been sports or whatever, I've always felt confident that I could do it. And some people might lack with that confidence, but a lot of times in my mind, when you lack confidence, is because maybe you haven't practiced enough, or you just, I don't know, a lot of it is up here.
Absolutely. And I see that on the trap range all the time. That's one of the biggest things we try to coach the kids on is don't, the mental aspect of the game.
Yep.
It's huge. It's huge. I had a kid that came over to the Alexandria tournament, and he's like, oh, yeah, I got to shoot a 95 today. And I'm like, you just set yourself up.
Yep.
Because you already have it in your mind that you're going to miss 5 birds, and I bet you're going to miss 5 more. Yeah, you shot a 90.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm like, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no different than anything else, sports, whatever. If you just focus on we have to win this game, it's probably not going to happen. You got to take it one step at a time, one pigeon at a time, clay at a time, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing. Where have you seen, I mean, students and the athletes really excel, and maybe you can give an example of a student that maybe started out early on and ended in a spot where you were so proud of them for accomplishing what they did.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of seeing that happen quite often with the trap team. It's been really cool to see these kids come in as a 6th or a 7th grader, can't hit a broadside of a barn, and a lot of times, we'll try different guns with them, different positions, try all these things, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and they're just off to the races. I'll go right out and name a couple of them. Zach Medic out of Piers, he joined the trap team a few years ago, and my goodness, he's got the mental part of the game very good. He's very consistent. Every time the way he shoulders the gun every time. He's got this technique that, it's just he's very consistent. He's got the mental game going. Another one was Daniel Niznik. And there's another kid that he started out, struggled quite a bit.
Yep.
And we were playing with his gun, different, adjusting it, getting it to fit him right. And then all of a sudden, boom, he just like off to the races. So fun.
That is fun seeing that development over time. What do you think it is? I mean, like you said, you're a big advocate for getting youth into the outdoors and stuff. What do you think we need to focus on more of as a hunting community to get that youth out there? Because like you said, there's a lot of youth out there that are not out there and they don't know what they're missing. So what are some steps that maybe us as hunters or the state can kind of do to kind of get that next generation moving and get them outside? Because we know the benefits of being outdoors. We know the benefits, and we want to pass that on because eventually we're not going to be here anymore. And it's about what we leave behind and how can we encourage our youth to get outdoors a lot more.
Well, what I'm about to say is not going to be a surprise to you. It's the parents behind those kids creating the opportunities to push them out the door and do it.
Yep.
Yep. I know a couple of young guys that are on the trap team. They live on a farm, and those kids are out running around the farm every day with their 22s, shooting who knows what, but they're doing it constantly, and that's what you and I did when we were kids.
Yep.
And that just that just is a segue to other things that you want to do in the outdoors once you start experiencing that. Trapping is disappearing fast, and I really love seeing these young kids getting into trapping because they will experience so many incredible outdoor things. It's just trappers see and experience way more than hunters do. So I really am, encourage that.
That's the one thing that I missed out on was trapping, and I keep telling myself that I'm gonna do some more trapping, and in the winter, like coyotes and stuff. But I'm still coaching basketball in the winter, so it makes it difficult. Just out of curiosity here, so when you're trapping, is it law that you have to check your traps every day? Is that what it is?
It depends on the set.
Okay.
Like if you have a land set, a leg hold trap, you got to check that every day.
Okay.
If you have a certain drowning sets or something like that, you can do them every 3 days.
Sure.
Certain kill sets. It comes down to whether your set's going to kill the animal instantly or if it's going to be alive in that trap. That's the difference.
Okay. Now, if you have a trail camera set up on that trap and it sends it to your phone, is that considered checking it, do you know, or not?
It's got to be physical.
Physically going out there.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I haven't gotten into it, because I know that I'm pressed for time in the winter with coaching, where it's like, oh, man.
It is time consuming and it's not cheap to get into. But here's the thing. There's a lot of guys that got traps hanging in their shed, not doing anything. And all you got to do is start asking around, and you'd be surprised. A lot of those guys, some kid looking for some traps, boy, you'll hit a gold mine.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. I think is the big thing we kind of wanted to kind of hit on today was making sure that people understand the licensing system, and making sure they get their licenses early. I just want to go back to that question that I asked you about your first memory of being, in that line of work. I was anticipating, Paul, a story of you going out there on some mission or whatever, and it didn't go that way. It went to building relationships with people, and that's just awesome to hear that coming from you. And I know there's a lot of other CEOs out there that think the same way as you. And not everyone's the same, but it's about building those relationships is what stands out to them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very good answer there.
Deer camps in particular, or people. I'd be driving down the road and I'd see a group of hunters in a farmyard. I'd whip in there. How's it going? And you end up in a big conversation. And before you know, you're like, oh, yeah, before I go, I should probably look at your licenses. Type of a thing.
Right, yeah.
We had more opportunities to just, visit with people. See, here's the thing that I discovered early on with this job. You're dealing with people in recreation. Where like a sheriff's deputy or a police officer are dealing with a little bit different clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And not that as a conservation officer we deal with those same type of people, but more so the people, they're on a day off. They're out recreating.
Yep.
And I think it really takes a little bit different kind of approach as a law enforcement officer in dealing with those situations. Maybe a little bit softer, but being able to shift gears when you need to, type of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about building relationships. It's no different than like me with teaching. If I come into a situation, which I have before, I've messed up, don't get me wrong. If I come into a situation where a student has messed up and I come in guns a-blazing, it's not going to be a good interaction. But if I come in and ease into a conversation and then ask, let's address this issue now, it usually works out a lot better when you can build that relationship with them before addressing the issue. All right, it is time for our Bonehead segment of the week, brought to you by Skullcraft. Justin over at Skullcraft does an amazing job taking your trophies and creating beautiful, beautiful European mounts. So if you harvest something sweet this year and you want to get a European mount, make sure you check out Skullcraft. And with that, let's get to our Bonehead of the week.
I'll tell you a quick story.
All right, I've been waiting for one of these here.
Okay. I got a tip call about a guy that very openly trespassed on a piece of property, shot a deer, grabbed the deer, took it, whole bunch of things wrong. Got the guy's name, knew the guy, went over, it was, way after the fact, that evening I go over and I knock on the guy's house, knock on his door. He comes to the door and he looks at me, and I'll just say his name was John. I said, "Hey, John, how you doing?" And he looked at me and he goes, how much trouble am I in? And I said, let's, before we do that, let's go sit down. Let's talk about the whole thing, work through this, and figure out, what needs to happen here.
Yep.
But I didn't have to, all I did was say, hey, John. And he's like, how much trouble am I in? And the only reason that took place is because, he knew me and I knew him.
Yeah. Yep.
He knew he messed up. I knew he messed up. And, he was instantly remorseful. And he's like, am I going to lose my gun? And I'm like, I don't know. Do you think you should? Well, I should. For what I did, I should lose it. And I'm like, well, that tells me right there that I'm not going to take your gun.
Sure.
So, and I repeated that story so many times in my career where somebody got in trouble and I went knocking on the door and went, hey, we need to talk about this.
Yep.
And you get through it.
Yep. Yeah. There was a situation that I was faced with the other day, and I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he goes, I know you're heated about this, but if you go into this situation, because he goes, I've been on the other end of it before, but if you go into this situation with a head full of steam, it's not going to turn out good for you. If you go in and you work with the individual, they're probably going to help you out a little more than what you think. So just keep your cool and go into it. And sure enough, I mean, it's a tough situation that I'm in right now, but it could be worse. There's always things in life that are worse, and sometimes you get caught up in the moment, and it's everything's happening right now, and you just got to take a step back a little bit and think things through and just have a normal conversation. Low level, low key, and things usually turn out good in the long run. But anything else we want to hit on, or anything you want to talk about as far as going into the season, just kind of piggybacking on the new system with hunters out there and everything?
Yeah, other than the new licensing system and everybody getting prepared for that way ahead of time, and working through the process of no tags. Okay, I don't know how that's going to work out.
Right.
But one of the other new regs that came out in the book this year, and when I read it, I was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
If you go on page 13 of the new reg book, and under the first paragraph under Deer General, it talks about how if you've harvested 2 deer in a 2 deer area, you can still go hunt another 2 deer area and tag more deer. Now, in the past, if I hunted in a 2 deer area and I shot my 2 deer, the only way I could go anywhere else and tag more deer is go to like an intensive harvest area with a bonus tag. I could tag a third one, so forth, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But if I went to another 2 deer area, I could only party hunt. I couldn't tag a deer. Now the state is saying that you can actually go tag 2 deer, buck and a doe, in a 2 deer area, go to another 2 deer area with 2 bonus tags, shoot 2 more deer, all the way up to that 5 deer statewide limit. So I was like, whoa, they definitely want to kill deer. They've really opened up the door for hunters, and the problem is, how many hunters do that? Very few.
Right.
Very few.
Yeah, and like you said, it comes down to ultimately the hunters out there.
Yeah.
And knowing your area, knowing the deer herd, all those things, because there are some areas around where the deer numbers are pretty high, but there's also some areas where the deer numbers are really low. But it's knowing those areas and what that land or that property is capable of producing and harvesting and doing your research on that. One thing I wanted to ask you too, up north has been a in my mind a disaster. Up there with wolves and bears and all that stuff. I mean, whatever. In your mind, just your opinion here, is there anything that we could do differently up there to try to get that deer herd back up? Because you look at all these deer camps up there. If you want to buy a land, Paul, go look up there because it is cheap up there. It is cheap because the recreation as far as hunting goes is down a lot, you know. So I mean, you look at what's really driving prices around here. Obviously, it's agriculture, but also there's a lot of people looking for hunting land, recreational land. But up there, I mean, the prices are down yet compared to central and southern Minnesota. But what is it in your mind, your opinion, just your opinion here? What do you think we could do up there to kind of turn things around so we can get deer camps back up north again?
You know, and I'm far from an expert on it, but you know, from what I've learned over the years, you know, that especially in northeast Minnesota, you've got so much old growth forest, and until that changes, you know, get those younger forests coming back in, that's going to help the deer. Our favorite subject, the wolf. I mean, that plays a huge part in it.
Yep.
But you know, those two coincide, you know, with the habitat. It's a tricky landscape to try to raise large numbers of deer.
Yeah.
It's just tricky.
It is. You're getting less cropland up there.
Yep.
So when it comes to deer surviving the harsh winters, but like you said, if you get that forest up there, if it's so mature, there's less undergrowth and there's less browse in the winter, and then you're going to see more, you know, deer not surviving, you know, those winters. But yeah, so I've actually contemplated purchasing a property up there and then maybe doing a bunch of habitat work up there and see if it makes a little bit of a difference. But yeah, it's crazy. It was a couple years ago, I did a little research on like just what the state has for like bear coverage, you know, throughout Minnesota, and wolf coverage. And it's funny how the line where wolves roam and bears roam, you know, where they say they roam, kind of is almost a straight outline of between zone 1 and zone 2 where they're all at. But there's a correlation there, but also, like you said, the habitat there also needs to, you know, to improve to also support, you know, a deer herd. But yeah, it's sad to see, you know, there's people that I know of that don't go up to deer camp anymore, and there's a decent amount of properties up there listed because of that, and a lot of traditions are going away because of that. But also now what happens is, in my mind, you know, people aren't hunting in northeast Minnesota, but they're still hunting, so they're sliding down, you know, into central, south, you know, southern Minnesota, which, you know, crowds things up a little bit. But I mean, they want to hunt too, which more power to them. But that's why it'd be nice if we could expand the state a little better again, because you look at in the past, Minnesota used to produce some large deer, and a lot of them were in that northeast portion of the state.
Yep.
You know, but yeah, it'd be fun to see that come back again and go hunt the quote unquote big woods up there.
You know, and unfortunately, I think we're really going to struggle in the future to reduce deer numbers in this state. I mean, you look at the map and you look at how many intensive harvest areas, all these green areas, intensive harvest areas. So many of these used to be red.
Yeah.
So many of them. Deer numbers keep going up, and you know, today's culture is, you know, I think we're going to have a hard time getting people to kill enough deer in this state to actually try to reduce the numbers in some of these states. And as you know, that has a lot of effect. Quality versus quantity. There's a juggling act there.
I said in one of my podcasts, if the state wanted to reduce deer numbers and make money, I mean, a lot of hunters wouldn't agree. I mean, they would agree with me, but they wouldn't want it, and it's earn a buck.
Yeah.
And what we need to do, and if you don't like that idea, what we need to do is start shooting some more does. I mean, you still shoot your buck, whatever buck size you want to shoot, go for it. But even myself, like last year, my number one goal, I believe, well, maybe it was number 2, but one of my goals was I wanted to shoot a doe on my property. That was one of my goals, and I didn't accomplish it. But you see so many people now, kind of like you were talking about before, the culture, what you see on social media, everything's buck.
Yeah.
So everybody is out there looking for that buck, and they're watching 5, 10, 15, 20 does go by so they can shoot their buck. And then maybe they say, kind of like me, I'm guilty of it too. I'll shoot my doe late season. Well, then all of a sudden holidays pop up, and all of a sudden weather or unforeseen, things pop up and whatever. But all of a sudden you don't take that doe down. Well, now you just took another buck, no doe. Another year, buck, no doe. And it just keeps going, and then eventually you see those deer numbers continue to climb. But yeah, it's just interesting to see, how the state has changed throughout the years and where it's at now, like you said, compared to where it was 10 years ago.
Well, and how many hunters, and I'm going to say young hunters, how many young hunters are willing to shoot more than one deer? I bet if they really did a survey on that, I would find that most young hunters are happy with one deer.
One and done, yep.
And the other aspect is, and I think this is something I'd love to see them teach us in school, how to butcher a deer.
Yep.
For some young person to go shoot a deer and have to take it to a butcher shop, that's a huge expense.
Oh, yeah.
Huge expense.
Yep.
Versus learning how to take that nice doe and break it down yourself and make it into burger or steaks or whatever. And, I think, if a person was better at that and understood it, I'd be more than willing to take an extra deer now.
You bet.
I can do this myself.
You bet.
So there's so many factors that just play.
There are no doubt. And that's what's cool too, when I bring home a deer and my girls get to see it hanging up in the garage, and then all of a sudden, cut some back straps out and I'll throw it on the griddle and we'll fry some of those up. I'm like, here, try this. And they're more than willing to try it out. And also like, this is good. I'm like, boom, boom, there's a connection. Awesome. They're locked. They're loaded. Let's go.
Yeah. When we would butcher deer here, we'd have the kids on the grinder, feeding the grinder, and helping bone out and stuff like that. Give them not the sharpest knife in the box. But
Right. Yeah, I actually made some jerky the other day, and I've never seen the smiles on my girls' face so big before. They're pretty excited. But anything else you want to touch on just before we close things up here, Paul?
Well, the only other thing that the big buzz out there is the mandatory CWD testing, and I don't want to get into that too much because that's a whole podcast in itself probably.
Yep.
Just be aware that something to put on your radar screen that they are looking at some pretty intensive CWD testing around the state, and I think we're going to see some more stuff coming out on that and some more discussion on that and on procedures and things like that. But yeah, something for the radar.
This is just my opinion, and I don't know where these CWD areas are, but I would have to assume they're in high deer density areas. So if you're an individual who does not like how the state proceeds with deer testing positive for CWD, I would highly recommend shooting a lot more does on your property to try to get those numbers down just a little bit. And that might, change things for the better and maybe not have people concerned about your area with too high of deer density and all of a sudden CWD showing up. But that's just my thought, my opinion on it. But I don't know. It is what it is. So.
No, I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, I appreciate you doing a podcast with me again. It's always fun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me over here, and thanks everyone for listening. Well, if you guys did not get the point during the podcast, I'm going to give it to you one more time here, and make sure you get your license early here in the state of Minnesota. Get everything taken care of online. Do not wait it around to the last minute, because you will find yourself in trouble trying to get a tag, more than likely, because there's a lot of things that have changed. And like I said in the podcast too, there's some shops, mom and pop shops that are not going to be selling licenses anymore. So you need to do your homework here early. I know I'm a procrastinator myself, but in this situation here, we need to get it taken care of as soon as possible. Special thanks to Paul for joining me on the podcast. I know he's always been willing to come on here with me and chat a little bit. So it's nice doing podcasts with people who, have been part of things before, have seen a lot of things, experienced a lot of things in the outdoors, especially in his line of work. And I just want to hit on this one more time. Be patient with our conservation officers out there this year, because they're in a new world as well, dealing with all this stuff. So the key here, work together with your local CO this year and make sure you're getting ahead of the game and getting your licenses taken care of early, because you don't want to be sitting there waiting till the last minute and not getting your license when it's time to get out in the field. So with that, I want to thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. I know I've been able to get a decent amount of podcasts out this summer. We'll see how things go once I get back to work here with teaching. But if you subscribe to the podcast, anytime I release a podcast, it'll automatically download to your phone, and that's what I'm kind of shooting for, is getting more downloads and getting more people to see the podcast, because like I said, my whole goal here is to help people out and bring educational and entertaining content to you guys along the way here. So please share the podcast and our other social media platform videos and content with other people too that you might find interesting or might help somebody else. We really do appreciate that support, along with all of our sponsors. They appreciate that support as well too. So, and those guys are Arctic Shield, Domain Outdoor, J&R Outdoors, Skullcraft, The Fish Guide, S1K Custom Calls, and also Fourth Arrow Cam Arms. You guys, I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you guys have a great day.